So what you're looking at now is the Great Zimbabwe ruins. This obviously looks like a fetus, and also this lines up perfectly with the pyramids of Giza. Is this just coincidence? I don't think so. So we've all heard that life started from Africa and spread throughout the world. Now, if you look at where Zimbabwe is and where scientists suggest that humans started from, then you can see obviously it's parallel. So once the Anunnaki created men, they spread out to the Aztec, Mayan, Sumerian, Egyptians, and they started cloning and using humans for their slaves. Mesopotamia, Greek, Rome, they're all Anunnaki. So the Sumerian civilization is the oldest known civilization we have written records for, and they talk of people coming from the sky, the Anunnaki, that created humans. The Sumerian lived in Mesopotamia at 5000 BC to 1750 BC. Their gods were called Anunnaki, or from those whose heavens came. And their technology was amazing. They invented the wheel, the plough, writing. So once they'd genetically engineered humans, the Anunnaki, they started spreading out, as you see in this map. It started from Africa, moved upwards towards Egypt, and then spread west and east. Now in Europe, the Neanderthals were drove to extinction by the Anunnaki because they made the best slaves. The proof of this is the 9,000-year-old Cheddar Man. It was found in Goth's Cave in Cheddar Grove, Somerset, England, a black Briton that lived 9,000 years ago. Now this must have been genetic engineering, because as we know, black people weren't meant to live in cold climates, and everything we've been told is a lie then about skin colour. White people have light skin because of the atmosphere they lived in. They didn't need as much light. Why would a black person live in Britain where there is hardly any light? This was part of the Anunnaki slave trade. Now in 2011, the Baltic Sea anomaly was found. It's shaped like a spaceship. It's got a 1,000 foot trail which goes through a mountain or a hill. So it's gone with some force. It's not just like people say, a battleship gun. Well, that would have gone straight down, I suppose. It wouldn't have gone through a mountain and left a trail. This coincides with the spread of light eye colour too. Now the Nebra sky disk is the oldest known depiction of the Pleiades. You can see it in the top right. This was in 1600 BC, and it's from Nebra, Germany. This part of the sky must have been very important to them. Also, the Pleiades are represented by the bull a lot of the time. You can see this in early European cave drawings, always of the bull. This is because the Pleiades were located in the Taurus constellation, and early Europeans knew where they came from. We all know the Anunnaki had elongated skulls, and this is why you find head binding in Anunnaki controlled territories. This includes Africa, North America and South America. Now the Anunnaki created humans for slave workers. This is the different Sumerian cultures describing how they was created by the Anunnaki. They treated humans like slaves. They ate human sacrifices, worked people to death, and we was also pawns in their armies. The Indian verdict text talks of a monkey army. The Pleiadian and Anunnaki War 2000 BC. So when the Pleiadians came to Earth, they was called the Hebrew or Hebrew by the Anunnaki. Once they'd landed, they set up a forward operating base in Europe, and then they went for the invasion of the Anunnaki territory. but the first invasion failed, with many prisoners taken, represented by the taming of the bull in the Gilgamesh epic. They was then taken into slavery. This is where the Hebrew people come from, in the biblical epic. Once the Anunnaki had defeated the Hebairu, they invented games to remember their victory, like bullfighting and bull leaping. If you look at where the bullfighters actually pierced the bull, it's where in the Taurus constellation the Pleiades are found. Now the Pleiadians regrouped and the second attempt was made, but this time it was successful. This was a rescue attempt. Once the rescue attempt had gone smoothly, the Hebairu fought a bloody war against the Anunnaki in the Middle East. They seemed to be winning until in one of the Sumerian epic nuked the Middle East from Africa. Evidence for this can be found in the Sinai Peninsula. Evidence can be found of this in the Sinai Peninsula by the blackened holes in the ground. The Sumerian text described the destruction. The flood swept over the land. After the flood had swept over the land, kingship had descended from heaven for a second time. It must have been an advanced civilization to take out the Anunnaki. Now the nuclear weapons was fired from Africa. This is in one of the Sumerian texts. In the Dead Sea you find alarming rates of radiation. Now Alexander the Great. The first recorded incident regarding Alexander the Great and UFOs was recorded in 329 BC. Alexander decided to invade India and was attempting to cross the river Indus to engage the Indian army, when gleaming silver shields swooped down and made several passes over the battle. Alexander the Great's story is also told in Islam under a different name. They call him Dal-Qurari. And when he went to the land, they said, Dal-Qurari, surely Gog and Magog make mischief in the land. Shall we pay you a tribute on condition that you should raise a banner between us and them? He said, I will make a fortified barrier between you and them. Bring me blocks of iron until when we had filled up the space between the two mountainsides. Now, Alexander was always depicted with horns on his head. Could this be anything to do with Pleiadians? As you notice from this picture on the left, there's a bull on the horse's rear. Now, the story tells of Alexander sealing an entrance, but where was the entrance? In the story it gives clues, subtle clues, but it's very hard to distinguish where exactly this happened. There's in my mind, there's two places this could be. This is either the Tibet or in the Sinai Peninsula. Blow until when he had made it fire, he said, bring me molten brass, which I may pour over it. So they were not able to scale it, nor could they make a hole in it, he said. This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, he will make it level with the ground, and the promise of my Lord is ever true. Now, something to note here is he's pouring molten brass, so over it, and they would not be able to scale it, nor could they make a hole in it. This sounds to me like something in the ground, like you'd block up an hole in the ground. You wouldn't pour molten brass to make a wall and a gate, would you? So this is a very strange story. Now, Alexander Romance is some tales of Alexander's life, but mythical apparently. The legend of Gog and Magog and the gates were also in the Alexander Romance. Goth and Magog are both kings of the unclean nations, driven beyond the mountain pass by Alexander, and blocked from returning by his new wall. Gog and Magog are said to engage in human cannibalism in the romances. They have also been depicted on medieval cosmological maps, sometimes alongside Alexander's wall. So who is Gog and Magog? A legend was attached to Gog and Magog by the time of the Roman period, that the gates of Alexander were erected by Alexander the Great to repel the tribe. Romanized Jewish historian Josephus knew them as a nation descended from Magog the Japhite, as in Genesis, and explained them to be the Scythians. In the hands of the early Christian writers they became apocalyptic hordes, and throughout the medieval period variously identified as the Huns, the Khazars, the Mongols, or other nomads. The Huns and the Scythians united to take Europe, but was defeated. So the Scythians were a group of Iranian people known as the Eurasian nomads, who inhabited the western and central Eurasian steppes from about the 9th century BC until the 1st century BC. So the Anunnaki and the Huns. The Huns were a nomadic people who lived in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and the Central Asia between the 4th century AD and the 6th century AD. According to European tradition, they were first reported living in the east of the Volga River, in the area that was part of Scythia at the time. The Huns' arrival is associated with the migration westward of the Scythian people, the Alans, by 370 AD. The Huns had arrived on the Volga, and by 430 AD the Huns had established a vast if short-lived dominance in Europe. First of all, Attila the Hun's empire fell in 465 AD. The Khazar Empire went from 470 AD to 965 AD, and then the Akhenatsis from 1000 AD to present day. Now we know the Anunnaki was masters of DNA manipulation, genetics. Were the Mongols an Anunnaki cloned army? Now the same can be said about Islam and Allah. Is Allah the god of the Bible, or is Allah the moon god of ancient Arabia? Now a few things to note is, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan starts at the sighting new crescent moon. Apparently the Anunnaki fled to the moon, or they have a moon base. They pray while bowing their head towards the house of Allah in Mecca that houses a meteorite. The Muslim holy month of Ramadan starts at the sighting of a new crescent moon. Was Mecca a cloning facility? There was a few attempts made to take back Europe by the Anunnaki. The French Renaissance was one of these attempts, which it failed, but it did start capitalism, another mind control of the Anunnaki. Also the Bolsheviks in Russia. Now, the French then went to help the Americans. Anunnaki aided the US independence. The statue of Isis was awarded to America for their fight with their brothers. All we ever hear about the British Empire is how bad it was. But was this not the Hebrews freeing the slaves once again? This is my point of view. Britain released nearly half the world's population from slavery at the height of its power. In 1938, Britain released half the world's population from slavery. Now I want to ask you one question. Would slavery have ended without Britain? As we can see, once the Anunnaki take over a country, slavery is the first thing they implement. So you can tell an Anunnaki civilization just by looking at it. Do they practice slavery? Yes. Do they have a hatred for Christianity? Yes. Now I hope you're starting to see the full picture. The Anunnaki, Ashkenazis and the Nazis are all the same thing. The Nazis were given highly advanced technology by someone. They was given anti-gravity, rocket technology, scientific technology. We was given one man, Tesla, and all he did was invent the precision approach radar, which won us the war. So the fall of the British Empire, the ex-British Empire colonists were invited to Britain Britain knew the fate that they awaited them, so they invited them back. Can you imagine any other country doing this? Can you imagine Rome in the height of its power, freeing all its slaves and inviting them back to Rome? And most of the countries really badly declined after Britain left. So the descendants of the Dutch-speaking settlers are called the Boers in South Africa. Now we see the Boer goat. Was this representing Taurus? Is this the ancient war that's been going on for thousands of years? The Anunnaki who want to kill the Boer?